Hey guys, welcome back to the second video of this series, kind of the first official video really getting into it, on my Logos for Bible Hub users series here. If you haven't watched the intro yet, I recommend you do so. It has some good background information, but if you don't care about all that and you just want to dive right in, then let's continue. So as with any website or web application, the best place to start is the home page, which is what we're looking at right here, BibleHub.com. Very simple. For those of you from back in the day, this used to be biblos.com. They changed it a few years back. The site has evolved and has added a few new things over time, especially new translations, but ultimately it's relatively the same as it has been for years now. The navigation is pretty much the same, and the interface, of course, is largely the same. Usually, when I first launch Bible Hub, it's because I have either a specific passage I want to view or a word that I want to look up, or else I recall maybe some part of a verse but don't remember the reference, so I want to search. Each of those functions will be covered more in depth a little later. For now, we're just going to highlight the major sections from the home page. So going from top to bottom, left to right, since no doubt most of you will be native English speakers like me, you'll notice that there are three bars or drop downs here at the top with buttons at either end. Now on the left side, there's a 9-dot button. It's usually referred to as an app launcher, that sort of thing. It's even called a waffle button. No, I'm not making this up. I spent 8 years doing software development, so there are some really fun names for things. At the other end, there's this 3-lined button. Most people recognize this one as a menu or settings button. We usually call it a hamburger menu. Once again, I'm not making this up. There's something about programmers and food. That's all I can say. Bible Hub, however, they call the leftmost button the verse chooser. You can see the little pop-up there. And the rightmost button, the version chooser. Right? Those are kind of self-explanatory. But they're ways of navigating to your preferred verse and version. Sandwiched between those two are these three drop-down menus. There's one for book, right here. There's one for chapter and/or chapter and verse, right? And there's one for resource. Some people would say this third button is a version drop-down, and that is sort of true. You can change which Bible version that you want and all. However, I prefer to refer to it as a resource drop-down because it can be used not only to select the different Bible translations, but also other resources as well. You can pick original language texts, you can pick study tools, you can pick commentaries. It's pretty handy if you already know exactly what it is that you're wanting to open. Now below these menu items is the search bar, which we will devote a later video to covering. Below that is a quick access bar of the most common translations. It's worth noting that there are more translations than what are featured on this bar or on the parallel translation page, but we'll cover that in the next video. Below this quick access menu of translation abbreviations are the resource categories. You can see parallel, sermons, topical, it's topical studies, Strong's, this links to your lexical works, but it's named for Strong's Concordance, comment or commentaries, interlin or interlinears, Hebrew and Greek. This will depend on what section of the Bible you're looking at. So since I'm technically defaulted to Genesis, it'll say Hebrew, but if I drop this down and say go to Matthew, you'll see this changes to Greek. Then we have lexicon. Again, it's a link to the lexical works that are included. If I'm looking at Greek, this would take me to Thyer's Greek lexicon. And lastly, we have multi. Now we will cover most of these in their own videos. The only one that I won't really speak on is the multi option, which are multilingual translations. I don't speak Spanish or Swahili or Turkish or Thai or Russian or most of the other languages on here. But you can think of it kind of like the parallel passage page, just for Bible versions other than in English. So now the next question that we come to is, how do I open a passage? Right? As already mentioned, you could open a passage from the drop-down or the verse chooser. So we could go to Romans 1:5 if we wanted to. Or we could use the drop-down here and go to Malachi 3. Once we're in the chapter, it expands the verses, and we can go to verse 6. Most of the time, though, it's more effective and quicker just to type into the search box and have it open the verse you want. So I'm going to go to Matthew 5:17 as an example, because, well, like most Messianics, I love that verse. So we can type Matthew 5:17 just like that, just like we would see the reference full spelled out and everything, and it will open in the multi-resource view, specifically the parallel resource view. Now this is super handy for studying a single verse. But to save time, there are other ways to search as well. For example, we could search for Matt 5:17, and it would get the same, or even MT 5:17, and once again the same. Or we could use a period instead of a colon, thus no longer requiring us to hold the shift key, right? This would give us a shorter keystroke, so Matt 5.17. And again, it brings us to Matthew 5:17. We could also do it without the space as long as we remember to use a period or colon, so MT 5.17. See, it reduces your number of keystrokes. Maybe not a big deal, but if you are an avid reader and voracious Bible studier, it probably will save you some time. But what if we want a whole chapter, not just a verse, right? Well, then we simply leave off the verse. So MT5 brings up Matthew 5. Now, one thing to keep in mind, Bible Hub will default to their own translation. That's the Berean Study Bible here, right? If you simply search for a given chapter in the search bar. That's the one major downside to navigating with the search bar. If you're amazed to hear that an online Bible study site has their own version of the Bible, well, stay tuned. We will get to that in the next video. So let's say that we're looking for the whole chapter of Matthew 5 here. There are 4 different ways to select a different translation. First, you can select a different translation using the quick access menu bar. Here we have left to right, the NIV, NLT, ESV, BSB, which is the Berean Study Bible we're currently looking at, KJV, and so on, right? You could just simply click one. So I'll click the New American Standard, and now we're viewing Matthew 5 in the New American Standard Bible. Second, you can select the version chooser. So again, the little 3 lines up here. We could pick a different translation. Let's say we wanted the Amplified Bible. Now we're looking at Matthew 5 in the Amplified. Third, you can use the resource drop-down and select a different version. So you can drop down from here and say, give me the King James. Once again, Matthew 5, now in the King James. Fourth and finally, and honestly the most janky sort of way that may or may not make you momentarily feel like a hacker, is to modify the URL. You'll notice at the top of your browser here in the address bar, you have biblehub.com/version/book/chapter, right? So if I come in here and if I edit this to NASB, it takes me back to the New American Standard, Matthew 5. You can also change the book or chapter this way. So let's say that I actually want John, and I want chapter 1. Now we have John 1. Also, as a quick final note on the Bible Hub interface, as we wrap up this short little introduction here, make sure that you keep up with footnotes of your preferred Bible translation. We'll get more into this in the future, but for now, if you're reading and you see little letters indicating things as you scroll, make sure that you check the bottom. So for example, we're going to bring up the ESV now, and you'll see this little B right here, right? Now hovering over it will bring up a little tooltip, and you can see what that footnote says. This doesn't really work very well on a mobile version, just FYI, but you can also click it and it will jump down to B. Greek, to his own things, that is, to his own domain or his own people. It's giving further explanation for a word or phrase that was translated. So just keep up with these footnotes as you're going along. And with that, let's transition from Bible Hub here in our browser over to Logos Desktop. Yay, right? Okay, so just as Bible Hub opens to the home page, so Logos Desktop opens to the home dashboard. Here you have various tiles and cards that you can scroll through. Many of them are going to be deals and offers from Logos, trying to sell you new resources or get you to pre-order some upcoming resources. So you can see here, this one's on pre-pub. You can see another pre-pub down here. Ads for Faith Life Giving, Faith Life Proclaim, the blog, another pre-publication. Things like that. If you have a reading plan or prayer list, those sorts of things, they will display up here at the top. I currently don't, so it's empty. Now you can turn this whole dashboard off. I actually like the dashboard, partially because it will highlight different features from time to time. So for example, we can start an expository sermon. We can see today in Christian history, right? Scrolling down a little bit more, we can get an excerpt from something from my own library, which in this case is the Bible Knowledge Commentary this time. I can get an excerpt from here in Satan's Second Temptation. We can come down to the Hebrew alphabet tutor even, right? This is a little interactive data set that helps you with learning biblical Hebrew. There's also one for Greek, FYI. But also I like the dashboard because it brings up things like the Logos blog posts that you wouldn't otherwise maybe see. So scrolling down right here, we have an update. This is a brief little thing that they update each month when they bring out the new free book of the month. And we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. Now, again, I like the updates. I like the little reminders. I like the things on the dashboard. You can go here if you want to customize it a little bit. You can pick that you only want certain things. Maybe you don't want pre-orders, pre-pubs. Maybe you don't want something from your library. Maybe you don't want suggestions or blogs, whatever it is. So you can be sure and check that out, or you can even just turn the whole dashboard off. This would essentially just make it blank. So at any rate, let's go, just like we did in Bible Hub, we'll go starting at the top left. We have the home button, but again, we're already on the home dashboard. That, yeah, takes you back home to the dashboard. Unless you have it turned off, then it's just a blank space. Next, we come to the library button, and clicking that, of course, gives us the library. Now we can take this and we can drag the panel down, and here we can see this is actually sorting my library currently by something that I've read or finished. And here I can sort by things that I haven't read. But there's a lot of different ways that you can sort things. Here we'll just do it by title. So again, we can sort by title, author. You can right click and you can choose which additional columns you want to be on, and then you can sort by those. Very, very useful way to search through and sort your library. So that's library. Next we have the fact book. So Passover, like we looked at in our example before. The open article to Passover, just because that's the last one I was looking at. If I go and look at a different one, I close out Logos and come back, it'll open to a different reference. So you get the fact book from the starter package and up. It's essentially an ever-growing encyclopedia, and it is powered by your resources. So if I didn't own the Lexham Bible Dictionary, it would choose a key article from something else, right? If I didn't own the Anchor Yale Bible Dictionary, it would jump to the next one. So the top suggestion would be Baker, right? So as your library grows, the sections and the content filled in here that relate to Passover as it's tagged and integrated in Logos will increase. That's why I say Logos continues to grow the more you acquire and the more you use it. So next we come to the search bar, and something that I think is honestly the worst UI or user interface element in Logos Desktop is the advanced search button, because it looks like an icon and not a dedicated button. This is actually a button. It opens the advanced search. Again, we'll get to that in a future video. Next, continuing across, again, we could just do a quick search here, hit go, it would search for it. For example, once again, Passover. I can open the fact book directly to Passover. I already had it open, so it jumps to here. Moving along, we have docs, where you can come in and you can create a bibliography. You can create clippings of your notes. You can create a reading plan, a prayer list. You can create a sermon. We'll dedicate a whole small section of a future video to that. Very useful tools, again, if you like taking notes, if you're writing teachings and sermons. These features vary by base package level, like most of the features of Logos do, but I'll drop a link that will kind of break down what different features are available in which different package levels. Next, we come to guides. And these are, in my opinion, the most important pieces of Logos functionality, and they are probably the things that you will benefit from the most. These are covered more depth in a future part. We'll do a whole walkthrough on that in part 9. So we'll skip it for now, but just keep in mind this is where they're located. Passage guide, Bible word study, exegetical guide. These are some really big tools. Next is tools. I know I said guides were tools, now tools are tools. Well, yes, you kind of just have to get used to the nomenclature. But here we find a Bible atlas, which feels almost like Google Maps. I'll drag it over. It feels almost like Google Maps, but for ancient Israel. Right, we can get some New Testament era things. We can view some Old Testament era history and so on. And so those are pretty cool. Also under tools, we have, again, our notes, we have media. We can do some highlighting. This is another way to access the fact book, but eventually this icon was added on the home screen. It makes it easier. There's text comparison. This is going to be your tool if you like parallel Bibles, if you like to look at multiple English translations verse by verse, side by side, but it's customizable. So unlike Bible Hub, where you have the set versions and translations they offer on the page, this you can pick and choose from your library which translations you want to include. Next, we come to the favorites bar, and here you can add any resource as just sort of a shortcut link to immediately open it. So here's a New American Standard Bible, and it opens immediately to the last passage that I was viewing. In this case was Genesis 9. So I have the Tree of Life version. I have the New American Standard Bible. These are kind of my favorite English translations. I have the Lexham Hebrew Bible for my Hebrew text. I have the United Bible Society's 5th edition Greek New Testament as my Greek text. And I have this wonderful commentary on the New Testament from the Talmud and midrash. If you're really big into rabbinic writings, you will love it. Again, check out the links in the description for some of these. Going over then to the right side, this little bubble here is really just identifying what recent updates there have been. Anytime there's an update to a resource, you'll get notified in here. It's not like they'll send you a push notification or anything, but you can get a list if you're interested in it. Updates to resources could be fixing some sort of spacing or formatting problem. It could be going in and adding a link to a different resource. It could be fixing a typo. All of those sorts of things are why resources will get updated. We also have a synchronization button. So if you've just purchased something, or if you've just reconnected to the internet and something has not uploaded in your library, you can click this, and it'll essentially try to refresh. Then we have the layouts button. Here you can choose predefined layouts, which is basically just telling Logos what resources you want opened at a given time at the same time. For example, here's one that I created for one of my grad school classes was on Greek syntax. So when I click it, you can see it opens immediately to the Nestle Aland 28th edition Greek New Testament. It opens the New American Standard Bible, it opens one of my textbooks, and it opens Mount Wallace's Greek Grammar, the other textbook. It's worth noting that if you use multiple monitors like I do, you can also create a layout that will automatically open resources on one screen and then some on the other. So some people like to have reading resources on one and note-taking or sermon-taking resources on the other. That's a great way to make use of multiple monitors. Next, we have the Close All button, and it closes everything. Imagine that. Then we have the Store button, which is kind of a quick and simple panel for accessing the Logos web store. So see, I can access over 84,000 resources that are available on the Logos web store if I wanted to. Now that's not everything. I don't know why there's a difference, but there it is. Lastly, there's the profile icon. You can tell because it'll have your picture. It's the account, I guess is the technical name of it. Here you can access your Faith Life profile, or you can sign out of Logos. So my account, my Faith Life profile, groups I'm in on Logos's website, or I can sign out. It is important that you create a Faith Life profile, especially because they send you a code for $20 during your birthday month, but only if you create a profile and put in your date of birth. The last thing in the menu bar is the 3 stacked bars, or this vertical ellipsis here. This is the help menu. Each of the items here is pretty self-explanatory, so I won't go deeper on those right now. We will go further into the program settings button in a future video. While there are many different features in Logos and far more than Bible Hub, I'm going to keep these first few videos constrained to showing how to do Bible Hub things in Logos. So in Logos, there are a couple ways to quickly open a passage. First, you can go to the search box and click Go. So again, Matthew 5:17, and I can go to my preferred Bible. That'll just open it right up into the New American Standard 2020. Now, if you noticed, I had to select something else from the drop-down because if I searched, I immediately picked the one that it had first suggested it would give me this. Now, this is what's known as the passage study layout. It brings up the passage guide for the passages I've selected. It brings up my top 3 translations. It brings up the information panel, and it brings up my #1 highest priority commentary right here at the bottom for the same passage. It also brings up journals from my library. All of these resources are in my library, and this is why it's important to prioritize your resources, which we'll get to in a later video as well. Now, we covered using abbreviations while searching for verses in Bible Hub, so we could do the same thing. So I'm going to close all. Again, MT 5:17, right, in Preferred Bible. Now, you can also go simply in here once you have a Bible open. That's another way to open a passage. And I could do MT 5.17. It brings me to the same verse. I could even do it with or without a space. So, for example, we could go to JN1:1. Takes us to John 1:1. Once again, you will see these and other resources change automatically, which we'll cover a little bit later. The next way to open a passage is by picking your translation first. So over here we have the Tree of Life version. I can type using the same syntax as I did up here into here, and again get MT 5:15 back to Matthew 5:17. To change translations, I can open a different resource from my library like this, search for NIV, and then pick the New International Version. There, it's open immediately. I can even more quickly change translations, however, by clicking this parallel resource icon right here. this gives me other resources from my library of the same type. And since I'm viewing a type Bible, it gives me my other Bible translations. I can even more quickly do this by clicking the left and right arrows. So I go left, 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 right, and so on. Again, these are the arrows on my keyboard, so you may not be able to see them after all. Now, as I mentioned, the footnotes are important to keep up with, which you won't find in Logos because it's a continually scrolling resource. As you'll see, we've already passed Matthew 5 and Matthew 6. Now we're in Matthew 7. So what about the footnotes? Right? Do I have to go to the end? Are they all end notes? Well, no. You simply click a footnote, and here it is. I can simply hover over it, or if I want to go there directly and read it, I click it, and it will take me there once again in my preferred Bible, which in my case is the New American Standard. So that pretty much wraps up our first video. I hope this helps. Once again, check out the description for some really great resources, some of the ones I featured here. Discount code if you want to go and get Logos Fundamentals for half off. That's $50 instead of $100. If you want to try Logos Basic, which is free, or even if you want to go and get 10% or more off your first base package purchase. I have links for all of those sorts of things in the description. Please be sure and check those out. In the 10th video, I'll cover a little bit more of my personal recommendations, so you can also check out that video, or else just review the different packages for yourself. Thanks, and shalom.